Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guest made a huge splash with his hit documentary, Cocaine Cowboys. And now Billy Corben is back exploring another seedy underbelly in Miami, steroids and Major League Baseball. In Screwball, Corben talks to the folks behind the biggest scandal in baseball, the biogenesis scandal, and Alex Rodriguez. Let's take a look.
There's a saying, never meet your heroes because they'll break your heart. From the moment I remember, I wanted to be a baseball player. It was the American dream. I got kicked off the team for smoking weed. It was a disaster. My plan was go into medicine.
The Belize School of Medical and Performing Arts.
What is Florida about? It's about vanity and sex. It was a perfect place for the anti-aging movement.
Especially down here in Miami, everyone wants things now.
There's almost no regulations.
You'd have people who pretended to be doctors, giving all types of medical advice.
He had a white lab coat that said Dr. Tony Bosch. He had a stethoscope around his neck. Yeah, I assumed he was a doctor.
Manny was the first VIP client. Within weeks, his focus was much better. He felt a lot quicker.
This guy says, yeah, my cousin's in the Yankees. It was an A-Rod.
He says,
I want whatever Manny was taking. I had a true believer right away. You know, 7 days after he started my program, he went ahead and in one game, he hit 3 home runs. And he said, I'll give you an extra 150 grand a year if you give me an exclusivity. I said, for 200, you got a deal.
listen, each home run costs money. At this time, Biogenesis had close to 300 athletes. We were consuming so much product, I had to go to the black market.
Okay, I just stumbled across some kind of steroid ring.
I didn't think I was gonna get caught. I was busy going to parties.
My cocaine bill was $6,000 a month.
The biggest steroid scandal in sports history exploded over $4,000.
Yes, look, if I don't get my money, I'll blow this whole thing up.
It was just an absolute clown show.
Get rid of steroids now.
This is my whole life, my legacy. You tell me why I should serve one inning.
Tony Bosch is not a doctor. Tony Bosch is a drug dealer.
Coke addict, bad son, bad father, bad brother, bad everything.
What can you tell us about that?
No comment. He's lucky he's not in the canal anywhere.
This guy's connected. A lot of people involved. Don't do this, you're gonna get killed. So I got my 9mm.
For every sleazy thing Major League Baseball did in trying to pay witnesses, threatening people to cooperate, A-Rod and his crew were doing almost the exact same thing.
You pretty much can forget the Hall of Fame.
It was almost like, hey, Mom, I made it to the big leagues, but in a different way, you know?
You can't make this up.
Everybody, please welcome the director of Screwball, Billy Corben. Hey, man, thanks so much for being here.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on another documentary about Miami hustlers, criminals, and all-around entertaining weird guys.
Sports and drugs.
Yeah.
Everybody loves it, right? Why not? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I might not be a one-hit wonder, but I might be a one-trick pony.
Are you originally from Miami?
I'm from Florida.
You're
Florida
from
native,
Florida.
but a lifelong Miamian.
And when did you start realizing, I mean, Cocaine Cowboys, I believe was your first doc, right?
Second.
Second doc, excuse me.
First one you've heard of, but second doc we made.
When did you start realizing or start wanting to profile, I mean, Florida is kind of a seedy underbelly in general just because of lack of regulation and
Kind of.
Yeah, and when did you start realizing that that was going to be kind of like you were fascinated with it?
Oh, pretty early on, single
I'm fascinated
digits
with
in life.
Florida.
You know, yeah, you kind of open your eyes and look around, and I think instantly you realize it's an unusual and very unique place. You know, it has a transient population, a lack of institutional memory. From year to year, no area looks the same. It totally transforms. You know, we are one of America's youngest cities, and so Miami is kind of America's perpetual rebellious teenager, where everything needs to be new, cool, the hottest, the latest. We don't really preserve anything. We don't really have a lot of history there to preserve. And it's a hustle town. It's all about the whole state of Florida's lies that came true. It's all real estate hustles, you know? People were selling swampland for $20 down and $20 a month so you could come and build your Florida dream home to retire, but there was nothing to build on. It was literally the swamp. And then we figured out how to tame the swamp, and suddenly it became a real place. Thanks, Uncle Walt.
So when did you get in touch? When did you meet the guys behind Biogenesis?
About 2014. But first, we were actually pitched this project.
You were pitched it?
Yes, in November of 2013. It was certainly on our radar. You know, the whole thing blew up in early 2013 when the Miami New Times did this expose where the whistleblower Porter Fisher you saw in the trailer, he stole these documents and brought them to this reporter. They blew the whole thing wide open. And by November of 2013, Alex Rodriguez was the only one of the players involved in the scandal to appeal his suspension. And why not? It was the longest suspension in the history of the game, so I guess he figured he had nothing to lose.
It's a huge scandal, too. Like, I mean, his name was synonymous with the scandal itself. I don't remember anybody else that was a part of it. I just remember him. So it would make sense that he would be like, I'm going to sue you back, or I'm going to appeal.
And he did. He spent millions and millions of dollars fighting this. And MLB, in fact, spent even more millions of dollars fighting him. It was this real battle of the legacies between the commissioner at the time, who was on the eve of his retirement, Bud Selig, and Alex Rodriguez. And
they were both guilty of it in a way.
Well, certainly. I mean, Bud Selig was the steroid commissioner. I think there's no doubt that he knowingly exploited and profited from the steroid era of baseball. In fact, it may have saved the game in the 1990s. And so we get a call from a publicist who I know from the University of Miami, and he says, my client, Alex Rodriguez, would like to meet with you to discuss the possibility of doing a tell-all documentary. And I went to lunch with Alex Rodriguez, and he pitched us essentially this story, where he denied ever knowing Tony Bosch, he denied ever taking any steroids, and he lied, basically. This is what he did throughout the lunch. And then they put it in page 6, that he was meeting with us to discuss the possibility of a documentary. And he was really not interested in doing a documentary. It was just part of his PR offensive against Major League Baseball at the time.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's where it started. And
can I ask, one of the running jokes in Screwball, which is really fun, is how sort of narcissistic and seemingly psychopathic he is at times. Did you find that to be the case when you had lunch with him as well?
Well, I mean, he lied. I mean, he was sitting even closer to me than you are, and he just lied. But he was lying to everybody at the time, to be fair. I mean, he was in a battle for his livelihood, his career, his reputation. So I don't really blame him. I'm a documentarian. I mean, when people ask me what I do for a living, I say people lie to me. That's what I do. The question is, how do you sort of vet that and determine what's real and what's not? He's a very interesting man. He's a very compelling character, a very complicated guy, a very sensitive guy. There's a theory in addiction and recovery that when that your emotional development is stunted at the time you start using. Yeah. So if you're a 13-year-old who goes to mom's medicine cabinet and starts self-medicating, you start abusing and become addicted, you'll forever be emotionally 13 years old even as you get older. I find that to be true of very famous people too. Right. So whatever age they become that famous or that rich, they seem to be emotionally stunted. They don't continue to develop emotionally. Why? Because no one tells them no after that. We are who we are based on our failures, and more so than our successes, and our limitations. We understand barriers and boundaries when people tell us, no, you can't do that. When you hear yes your whole life and how brilliant you are and perfect and amazing you are, it really warps your emotional development. So there's a childlike quality to Alex when you meet him. There was a sensitivity, he was almost fragile. And so I was really excited about being able to interview him and make a documentary about him, but that wasn't meant to be.
Yeah, childlike quality. There's the scene in the doc where he is making faces at Bosch in front of the Major League Baseball lawyers, right? And that is so child. Could you believe that when you heard it?
Yeah, why not? I mean, I met the guy. I mean, there's a certain immaturity about him at the time. I think now he's sort of like liberated. I think he feels more free to.
He's retired. He can kind of
to be himself, to be self-deprecating, to have a sense of humor, and so I really kind of admire who he's become now. At the time he was lying to everybody, maybe even including himself, and how liberating it must be to not have those constraints of being the highest-paid baseball player, one of the greatest of all time. Everybody contemplating your Hall of Fame prospects and like all eyes on you. Now he can just walk down the street and walk into a bodega and buy a pack of gum. No one would look at him twice, right?
Or, take photos of his fiancée in a tropical island and be like, check out her butt in his photo, in his Instagram.
I'm not expecting an invitation to the wedding, by the way.
So you meet, so you meet Alex Rodriguez. He lies to you. You basically realize there's no documentary there for you to make with him because he's only going to tell lies and he doesn't even really want to do it.
No, I thought that would be interesting. Even if he lied to us in a documentary, I thought that would be interesting. I just thought
like
he was
Toback Tyson documentary.
Yeah, he's like a very complicated guy, and I just thought he'd be an interesting personality to examine in a more in-depth and thoughtful way. I was in touch with the publicist throughout most of 2014, or the better half of it, and it was kind of back and forth, not interested, and then they kind of ghosted me out after that. And then almost a year to the day that Alex reached out to us, Tony Bosch, the fake doctor, he doesn't like when I call him a fake doctor. He prefers the term unlicensed physician, which is a bit of a distinction without a difference, but
a weird oxymoron, right?
Yeah, whatever he wants. So he's got me on the good stuff now. So I'm feeling better. I got a little more pep in my step, and so I'll call him. He's an unlicensed physician. You heard in the clip when the journalist says that he went to the medical school, was the Belize School of the Medical and Performing Arts. Yeah. Right. So Tony reached out to us and said, "I'd like to discuss the possibility of doing a documentary with you." So this is now the second key player in this extraordinary scandal that reached out to us, independent, obviously, of Alex. And so we met with him several times, went on over the course of several months, and then he went to federal prison. So that was the end of sort of our second go-round with this project. And then I got an email saying that Porter Fisher, the whistleblower in the case, was asking Tim Elfrink, the journalist now at Washington Post, who had done the expose earlier in 2013. He said, "Porter Fisher's asking me for your number. He'd like to talk about maybe doing a documentary with you." And so I'm not a very spiritual guy.
Can I ask, how did all of them know to go to you?
My producing partner, Alfred Spellman, says when you get released from prison in Florida, your first call is to your mother, and your second call is to us at Raconteur and at our company in Miami Beach. And I guess we just have a reputation of, I think, being really objective and fair to people who are otherwise really judged by journalists, by society. We kind of give everybody a fair shake and tell it like it is. So, ever since Cocaine Cowboys, I think we've just had a reputation for that, particularly in the Florida area. And so, Alex Rodriguez's people thought of us, Tony Bosch thought of us, and then Porter Fisher thought of us. And I thought, man, if ever the universe was trying to tell us something, we should probably make this documentary. And so we pursued it.
So now you get Porter Fisher and you get Dr. Bosch.
Doctor, air quotes.
Dr. Bosch. Did either of them... did they know that you were interviewing the other one? Did they care? Or were they happy that you were just making a documentary that was about the subject completely?
All of the above. They knew, they cared, certainly, about what the other might say, although they weren't shocked by anything that the other would say. And they really did kind of support the other's story. There was a lot of consistency in there, with the exception of the complexities of this loan/investment. That's the really peculiar thing about this whole story, is that it's not about Alex Rodriguez. Don't tell him that, though. It's not about Alex Rodriguez. What really it's about is that the highest paid baseball player in the history of the game, his career was effectively ended over a $4,000 debt between this cocaine-addicted fake doctor and his fake tan-addicted steroid patient. And that's what really attracted us to it. And we realized the story wasn't about Alex. It was about these very uniquely, only in Miami, sort of Elmore Leonard, Carl Hyacin, Coen Brothers-esque characters, and what we call lovingly Florida effery. We don't use the letter F, but Florida effery, which can we say that?
Yeah.
Oh, I did. Oh, good. Florida fuckery then. Yeah. Okay. In that case, now we're gonna have some fun. But
I was confused for a minute before I realized you were gonna use wanted to say fuck. I was like,
I did.
Effery. What are we talking about? Like, what is that? A Florida flower?
Seriously,
I'm not really.
What the fuck am I talking about? No, in this movie you're just freebasing Florida fuckery. It is pure undistilled Florida fuckery.
100%. They're tanning. They're talking about Miami. They're talking about cocaine, and they're talking about weird, seedy underbelly drugs that are affiliated with Brazilian mafia guys.
And they're not just talking about tanning. We're talking about a 24-hour tanning salon. We're not just talking about cocaine. We're talking about a man who had $6,000 a month cocaine bill. He says cocaine bill. I don't know, do they bill you? How does that, is there Can you do
put
auto
that in-
pay?
Could he put that in his expenses?
Yeah, like how
is
does that? Yeah, how does that work? But he said my cocaine bill was $6,000 a month, and that was really the problem, of course. And he's very candid about his addiction. And he said he was basically hitting rock bottom at the same time the scandal erupted. Yeah. And so he got that $4,000 from Porter Fisher, and he essentially put it directly up his nose, and then had no intention for a time of ever paying it back. But the thing of it is that this only happened over like 4 weeks. It was a very short time period where Porter's very short fuse burned down, and then he just exploded, stole the documents, brought them to the New Times, then had the stolen documents stolen from him by this sort of like gang of sort of tanning salon mafia, if you will, who actually distract him by putting him into a spray tanning booth where he's getting a spray tan while they break into his car and steal these stolen records so that they can then turn around and sell them to Major League Baseball in a diner for $125,000 cash. Literally, Major League Baseball investigators have like a shopping bag with cash that they're giving to this convicted felon for stolen documents in a diner because Florida.
Also, they could have asked for more money. Like $125K does not seem like that much money for what they were selling to Major League Baseball.
But they did okay. I mean, because first of all, they didn't just sell them to the highest bidder. They sold them to every bidder. They sold 10 grand for some of the files to A-Rod. Then, so they're at the diner in this really shady transaction, obviously, with Major League Baseball. Because where the hell does this money come from? Like, Major League Baseball's got like a slush fund that they could just go. I mean, they weren't going to 1099 the guy, I presume, you know? So he's got a buddy at another table in the diner with his cell phone recording video of the transaction. And then they turned around and offered the video to A-Rod, to sell the video to A-Rod. So then he could go out and kind of push back on Major League Baseball by saying, look at what they're doing. They're running amok. They're breaking the law in the state of Florida. But these guys got freaked out, and so they deleted the video. Okay, because there was a lot of scary shit going on in Miami at the time. This was a whole cottage industry in Miami. MLB paying lawyers, private investigators, Alex Rodriguez doing the same. So there was like a lot of money to be had in this. So people wanted to sort of get involved in this biogenesis scandal hustle. And so these guys freaked out, deleted the video off the hard drive, and sold Alex Rodriguez for 6 figures. We have the invoice in the documentary. Sold him a blank hard drive, which he then allegedly sent around the world to data recovery services, spent thousands of dollars doing this, never recovered it. But the other guy was laughing literally all the way to the bank. He didn't get his second payment. He was promised another like 200 grand or whatever against the original payment if they could recover it, but he still got like 200-300 grand for literally a blank hard drive. We could go to Best Buy and just sell Alex Rodriguez blank hard drives all day long. That'd be great.
What I love about this scandal, or what I love about Florida, is that there's a scandal happening, and only in Florida are people going, "Hey guys, there's a scandal happening. We got to get involved."
Oh yeah, how do we profit from that? You listen, it's not. Carl Hyacin says in Florida all we produce are oranges and machine guns. That's the only sort of indigenous industry. Otherwise, we sell the sunshine. We sell tourists. We sell hotels and restaurants, and some of them are the most wonderful in the world, and theme parks. But the bottom line is it's not like you go to work for a factory or in an industry for 20, 30, 40 years, retire, get your gold watch. We subsist from hustle to hustle. We kind of have to, and our side hustles have side hustles.
Raw capitalist state.
It's as raw as it gets. And the frightening thing is the Miami of today is the America of tomorrow. So just you wait. But I always say there's an old saying that I love that the older I get, the more true it seems to become, which goes that L.A. is where you go when you want to be somebody. New York is where you go when you are somebody. And Miami is where you go when you want to be somebody else. And it's always been a sunny place for shady people. And that's true of all of Florida. But Miami in particular is like America's Casablanca, you know? So if it feels like this kind of like gray market economy that's lawless and everyone and everything is for sale, if it feels that way, it's only because it is actually that way, you know?
One thing we haven't even touched upon yet is your reenactments are with child actors, or at least children. Where did that idea come from? What made you want to do that?
What children?
That one.
Oh,
that's
yeah,
not
okay.
Alex Rodriguez.
There's little kids. So, Well, like when we've done, I don't know if you guys know ESPN 30 for 30, the sports series. We've done a lot of sports documentaries, and that formula is pretty straightforward. I don't want to call it paint by numbers. There's still a challenge to produce, but you interview sports people who talk to you about sports games. Then you get footage of sports games and you put sports footage over, it's pretty straightforward. Here, this wasn't about sports. It's not about sports. It's certainly baseball adjacent, but they only mention 1 or 2 specific games that we cut to for seconds. What do you do with the other hour and 40 minutes? So we knew we had to shoot something for that. And
can you even get the MLB like how hard was it to get licensed MLB footage?
Well, we fair used it.
Oh, you can fair?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's very de minimis. We use very tiny clips of it that are directly related to things that they're talking about. For example, Tony Bosch cites a Kansas City game the Yankees played shortly after he started treating Alex Rodriguez, and Alex hit 3 home runs in that game. Right. So he specifically mentions that game, so we show a very quick clip, and the rest of it is the little boy.
And you have the clip of the Red Sox pitcher throwing the
at the end,
at
right?
The end. Yeah.
And that's it, which Tony Bosch had mentioned, how the pitcher started gunning for Alex after the scandal erupted. But Blake McCall, the actor who plays A-Rod, actually hits the 3 home runs in the movie itself. A great job he did. Actually made contact with the ball too. And he actually studied the way that Alex hits and the way he kind of positions himself at bat. It's really rather uncanny. And some of it was like creepy. I told him the day we did the arbitration scene, I was like, Blake, this is just creepy today. Like you just look like you've channeled Alex. It's really funny. But I was inspired by the fact that it seemed that all the people in this story acted like children. So it seemed like this was sort of an appropriate technique. And it was actually inspired by Spike Jonze in 1997 had a challenge to do a posthumous music video for Biggie right after he was murdered for the song Sky's the Limit. Right. And he decided, as Yogi Berra once said, when you come to a fork in the road, take it. And that's what Spike Jonze did. He said, I'm just going to do a straightforward Bad Boy Records music video with the Mercedes and the Versace clothes and the hot tub and the girls and the mansion, but everybody's going to be 8 years old. So there's a baby Biggie and a baby Busta Rhymes and a Lil Kim, and and it's an amazing video and a real wonderful homage, I think, to an incredible artist who was not with us anymore at that time, and an iconic video because it looks just like every other Bad Boy Records video.
What did your subjects think about being portrayed by children?
So they didn't know about it.
Of course, but when they saw it, I assume they've seen it at this point.
Yeah, so I screened it for each of them individually just because I didn't want it to come out and for them to find out about it. We had like private screenings for each of them, and I gave them the pitch just before we showed it to them and broke the news. And they were cautiously pessimistic, I think, when we hit play on the movie, and then laughed all the way through it. I think, what do they say is tragedy is comedy plus time?
Do they recognize even now?
I'm sorry, comedy is tragedy plus time.
Yeah. Do they recognize even now the ridiculousness of the circumstances that they found themselves in?
Only now.
Of course.
Yeah, meaning at the time, it seemed quite dangerous to them. I mean, so they felt like their lives were legitimately being threatened. And in fact, a law enforcement officer that we interview in the movie says that was true, that there were legitimate threats against Porter Fisher, for example, for coming forward and being a whistleblower in this, because there are a lot of powerful, moneyed interests, and with a lot of fans who were upset and kind of people in their camp, and so he was really scared for a time. Now I think he looks back and a little bit more lighthearted. But the thing about the kids is, and this was Porter Fisher's point and his reason for participating, is that really he felt that the kids were the victims. Not only did Tony Bosch treat high school kids, high school athletes whose parents and coaches brought them to Tony Bosch to give them an edge in the draft, which he rightfully went to prison for. That is what he went to prison for, Tony, for treating these high school kids. But also, we kind of make this point towards the end of the movie, that the kids are victims because they look up to these professional athletes as role models, as heroes. And I was with Brian Blanco. He's the young actor who plays Tony Bosch in the lab coat and the stethoscope. We were at a Q&A, and someone asked, well, what's the moral of the story? What's the point of all this? What are we supposed to glean from this? And Brian raises, he goes, ooh, ooh, ooh. I'm like, dude, it's your Q&A too. You have the floor. He's in 6th grade, so he raised his hand. I'm like, dude, just talk. And he said, The moral of the story is, and what I learned from this is, lie, cheat, and steal, and that's how you win. Now, coming from me, that doesn't sound like much, but coming from a 10-year-old boy in a room full of adults, it was like everybody, I mean, there was like audible gasps in the room. People were like really disturbed by it, and it was pretty upsetting, and to tell you the truth, because that seems to be the message that we're sending to our children now.
Not just with baseball. I mean, I think you could look at this as one story in a much larger story of lie, cheat, and steal for the purpose of winning. It's everywhere. It's all around.
I call it the new American values. That's what I call it. We used to teach our kids honesty, integrity, be nice to people, do unto others, be sharing, and now we teach lie, cheat, and steal, and that's how you get rich, that's how you get ahead. Don't worry about anybody else, just worry about you, your family, your cronies. Lie, cheat, and steal, and you could be the highest paid baseball player in history. Lie, cheat, and steal, and you can be the commissioner of Major League Baseball. Lie, cheat, and steal, and you two kids can be president of the United States.
It's a zero-sum game, so get what you can while you can. Yeah.
MAGA, bro. MAGA. We're just trying to make A-Rod great again. That's what I meant when I said that.
He seemed to make himself great in retirement. That seemed to be the thing that made him great.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, we've seen a resurrection like this since Jesus Christ. It's remarkable. It really is. And I don't knock his hustle. He's damn good at his job. Like, he earned that. It's not just like star power. He's really, really good on television. I mean, nobody who knows more about the game than he does, but he also does an incredible job of translating it for people and explaining. I think he's great at the gig, and I mean, I think it's going to be studied in college courses on public relations for many decades to come. I mean, it's remarkable.
What did Pete Rose do when he was gone, when he was pushed out? I mean, I don't think he became a commentator. What did he end up being?
Actually, he did.
He did.
Well,
really?
Much later. So that's what's interesting.
He needed more time to recover and to.
Well, he was banned forever from baseball, so that was obviously a lot more damaging than the longest suspension. You know, a season-long suspension is what ultimately Alex Rodriguez was reduced to. It was 162 games, and so when Bud Selig retired, you know, I look at baseball as like a lot of things that we see in American life now, particularly politics. It's just the WWE. And so when Bud Selig was the Vince McMahon of the operation, he was like, you know what works here? We got to make Alex the heel. Like, that's the storyline that works, because he was about to retire. He was the steroid commissioner who did nothing about it. He's like, this biogenesis steroid scandal erupts right on the eve of his retirement. So he's like, goes to his second in command, Rob Manfred, go look like we're doing something about this. So he goes, and his investigators run amok in Miami, and they do something about it. They get the biggest scalp they could possibly get, one of the greatest and most famous and highest paid players ever. And Selig rides off into the sunset. Manfred ascends to the throne. Now he's Vince McMahon. What's the storyline now? Everybody knows the best storyline in wrestling is when the heel becomes the hero. So they bring in not only Alex Rodriguez, but they brought in Charlie Hustle, Pete Rose himself. You remember, they were together, I think, on Fox Sports at the beginning, and they were amazing, incredible television. And then Pete Rose got his second ban, lifetime ban from baseball happened.
What was that?
It was a scandal. There was, or as we say in Miami, escándalo. You know, it was bad. And so now it's just Alex, and he's just amazing at that job.
But so Selig was commissioner in the 90s, right?
Oh, yeah.
When it was like, I mean, Mark McGwire went from like a pencil-thin first baseman to a jacked professional bodybuilder. It was the most insane. Like, it was a joke. Everybody knew.
Everybody knew.
There was no way to not know. You just needed a before and after picture, and it was like, this is the poster for steroids.
We morph him in the movie, actually. You see kind of like the before, him and Canseco back to back. Poor Jose Canseco, who did all the same stuff, but everybody hates him, you know, and everybody loves Alex. You see, he gets a little upset on Twitter sometimes about that. But like, these guys became baseball monsters, just smacking the ball to Guantanamo, and their necks suddenly looked like my waist, and everybody was just like, everybody knew what was happening, but everybody was cool with it, you know? Just like everybody knows wrestling isn't real, but it's entertainment. It's
we could track the numbers and be like, 60, 65, they're breaking records.
That home run race arguably saved baseball after the 1994 players' strike.
I would say maybe that, and then like the Red Sox winning the World Series for the first time.
The who? I'm sorry?
Yeah. The Red Sox winning the World Series for the first time. I'm from Massachusetts, so
nobody's
I remember
perfect.
That.
That's fine.
But those two things were massive baseball stories, and since then, I don't think we've really seen a really big baseball stories.
A-Rod's a big baseball story. Him
Right,
coming back into the
coming
fold.
back.
Him and Rob Manfred and J-Lo posing for pictures together. It's just a remarkable second act, and that's a storyline.
But those are stories for social media. Those aren't stories necessary to keep someone watching a 4.5-hour baseball game.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, I'm not.
What keeps people watching a 4.5-hour baseball game?
It's cheaper than Ambien, maybe. Slightly less sleep eating. I'm not really sure. You need screensaver, I guess.
Unlicensed physician that is baseball. I think we have time for a couple questions. What do we got? Right here.
Hi, I wanted to ask about your crew and like the process you went and how you kind of consider who you want to be on your team when you go and make documentaries.
We live and work in Miami Beach area, so we work with a lot of local people on production specifically. And this was a pretty demanding production for us. Ordinarily, like a big crew for documentary filmmakers is like 6 people. 8 people would be a huge day. On this show, on our biggest days, like at Live Nightclub, at the Fountain Blue, or at the Ritz-Carlton Key Biscayne, to give you some perspective, we fed 100 people at lunch. And that's huge. I mean, that's a huge footprint for us. So it was a bit overwhelming and a bit more complicated. But we have some great local talent that helps us kind of suss out great folks working down there. In post-production, though, we do work kind of far and wide. We're working on a project right now where we have 1 editor in Miami Beach, 1 editor in Nashville, and 1 editor in Los Angeles. So post-production, we tend to work a little bit more remote, and we just mostly get referrals. I mean, it's, you're looking for someone who's going to recommend someone else. I mean, that's the best thing, is just sort of networking and knowing other people in the industry who then tell you this person is great and you should work with them.
One more.
Hello. So I go to NYU for film, and as an aspiring documentarian myself, I feel like one of the hardest parts is like fundraising. So do you have any advice for fundraising, and how do you get people to support your films?
So I would say don't. Try to avoid fundraising if you can. I think you have now in your pocket, I'm assuming, the most powerful tool ever created, and one in which I could have only dreamed of having when I was your age. And you have the most powerful camera that I could have dreamed of having when I was your age. You have the ability to produce and edit and distribute internationally from your pocket. I would say the best thing about being a producer or filmmaker is to go produce and film something. So I think that's where you have to start. You have to look at the world around you and what you have access to, and go out and do something that will then put you on the map. That's what, see, Cocaine Cowboys, that's what it did for us. It made us the Miami filmmakers, which is what we wanted to do. We wanted to build a brand around our geography and around, Miami-centric and Floridiana kinds of stories. And so that's what you have to do. You have to be known for something and put yourself essentially on the map. And in order to do that, you have to produce a calling card. You need a calling card is what you need, which is what Cocaine Cowboys was for us, which is why people very commonly think of it as, that was your first movie, because that's when people first heard of us. Our first movie actually went to the Sundance Film Festival, but nobody ever saw it after that, So you should produce it on your own. Find a way to do it and get yourself out there, create a calling card where people go, holy shit, this filmmaker is incredible. I need to know who this is, and I need to work with this person, and I need to give them some money to make something else.
Billy, congratulations on Screwball, man. Another really fun documentary about a Florida scandal. It comes out next week on Friday, right? April 5th? Or?
Comes out today.
Oh,
right
comes out
now.
today.
Yeah, 12 cities
right
around
now.
the country. It's playing at the Cinema Village here. And next Friday, April 5th, it comes out on VOD. So then everybody will be able to get it iTunes, Amazon, wherever you get video on demand.
Billy Corben, everybody, let's hear it.